7 Spurs finish in double figures, double-doubles for Bismack Biyombo and Chris Paul, but the Pelicans ride a late second-half wave of momentum to a 6-point win, 109-103 over the Spurs tonight in New Orleans. We continue Spurs Live. Dan Weiss, Madison Hawk back inside our Spurs Live studios here. Madison, game that had a lot of similarities to Sunday's game. Spurs jumped out to a 19-point lead in the first half. Pelicans closed strong at the half. The difference in this game was Spurs kind of hung in there in the second half, but the Pelicans just, as Sean pointed out, like they've got a lot of pieces that are much more better than what a 14-win team has.
Absolutely, and I love that Sean did point that out, because you take a look at Zion Williamson, C.J. McCollum, Trey Murphy, even Jose Alvarado, all pieces that were key roster pieces when the Pelicans were number one in the West a year ago. Yes, they've lost Brandon Ingram. Yes, they don't have Jonas Valanciunas anymore, but there are still pieces. There are still really talented players on that Pelicans roster, so you do have to give credit where credit is due. The game of basketball is all about runs, and the Spurs were able to handle some of the Pelicans' runs down the stretch of that second quarter, but then in the second half, it looked like the Pelicans were just able to go on more runs, and the Spurs weren't answering back as quickly.
Trey Murphy III led him with 24 tonight. We send it back out to the Smoothie King Center. Jacob Toby, Sean Elliott to put a bow on this trip to New Orleans. Guys?
Dan, thank you very much. Rough couple games for the Spurs. Devin Vassell hadn't been shooting it the way he had wanted to, but he's always putting in the work. He's always putting in the effort. And when the three wasn't falling, he drove it to the rim, had himself a 20-point night tonight.
Yeah, got uncorked there in the second half, and he made a lot of good decisions with the basketball and really got himself started by taking the ball to the basket. Hit that three ball early there in the first half, took the ball to the basket, got a couple of and ones, didn't settle for outside jumpers. When he had an opportunity to exploit a mismatch, he did that not once, twice there. And then he hits a big three ball coming down the stretch. And I thought at that point, our guys had a really good chance to win this one. Devin Vassell, again, smart decisions, saw the ball drop for him a little bit more. So hopefully he's regaining more of his confidence.
All right. So back to back in Houston. Yeah. Again, I asked you after last game, is this a forgettable game? You said yes the first time. Do you forget about this one too?
Well, I mean, there were several things there. I mean, this team is much better than their record, the Pelicans. They still have Zion Williamson. He played really well tonight. They have Trey Murphy, who is a budding star. Jose Alvarado played well for him. Kelly Olynyk was a great pickup as well. Misi did his job. You have C.J. McCollum. You have guys that are really good basketball players. And so when you look at their record, it's easy to say, how do you lose to this team? But that's still a good ball club. They've been snake bitten a little bit by injuries, and so they've lost a lot of games. They've lost a lot of time because of player injuries. So they're better than advertised. And when you see Zion out there with extended minutes and Trey Murphy doing what he does tonight with 24, they're a formidable team.
We've seen the Spurs struggle against Zion the last couple of games. Obviously, no Wemby down there defensively. Alperen Şengün's a mismatch down low as well. He's tough in the paint.
He's hard to handle, even when you have all your guys. And so if you don't have a lot of bigs to throw at him, he can become a problem. And we've also had a problem with Jalen Green as well. So we're going to have our work cut out for us tonight. Let's see if the Houston Rockets are ready to go and ready to play, if they're going to take our guys lightly.
I'm proud of you. You faced your fear.
I did.
You just faced your fear about 2 minutes ago.
You saw that.
King Cake Baby.
I made the sign of the cross before the baby. And I was taking a lot of breathe. That's what I told myself. This is a true story. I have my mother's rosary in my bag. I carry it with me everywhere. I'm going to go say about 12 Our Fathers when I get in the bus. So, yeah, I did. I faced my fear tonight.
Maybe you won't dream about that thing ever again.
It's sharks, ghosts, and the king cake baby. Those are the three things I'm afraid of.
Let's get out of here, man. We'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Still not going to give up a trip to New Orleans, though, Sean.
No, come on, Dan. For all this fried food they got here, fried ice cream, fried sausages, fried gator.
You'll just suffer through it. You'll suffer through King Cake Baby every couple of times.
I made my peace with him, so we're all good now.
Yeah. I didn't look like a face of somebody who made their peace with him, I'll tell you that much.
I just worry about waking up in the middle of the night and having him standing over me. It's just a nightmare that I have. I mean, that's what is that thing? I don't understand it.
See you in Houston tomorrow night.
That's great. That's going to be on his highlight reel.
Yeah. Spurs and Rockets coming up tomorrow night, second game of the back-to-back. That did not look like the face of someone who was facing his fears.
No, not at all. But, hey, props to him. He did go in for the hug. He stood up, gave him a, two-arm hug. So I guess it's facing your fears, right?
Spurs fall here tonight in New Orleans and try to rebound tomorrow night in Houston. Devin Vassell, step-back jumper this late in the fourth quarter. 2 of his 20. More Spurs Live, but we continue after this. Spurs fall tonight in New Orleans as we continue Spurs Live, but it was a 12-point, 10-assist double-double for Chris Paul, Madison, 538 of them over his illustrious 20-year career. That is number 3 among active players behind only LeBron, Nikola Vucevic in Chicago.
Wow, yeah, to put it into perspective, the Spurs had 29 assists tonight. 10 of those came from Chris Paul. We talked about his impact and the way it's felt both on and off the court today earlier in pregame with Sean Elliott, and I thought he had great points. This is the guy you need in your locker room, especially during the tough stretch, especially when you're on the road for a long stretch. A guy like Chris Paul that can bring that veteran leadership, but the consistent presence that he's able to offer on the court as well. His ability to pick these defenses apart. The Pelicans have a pretty solid defense. So the way Chris Paul was able to read it and try and generate some offense tonight, once again, really impressive.
Second half for the Pelicans was led by the combination of Trey Murphy III and Zion Williamson, who combined for 42 points in this one. Zion himself had a big game on Sunday, but tonight really was Trey Murphy III, who struggled shooting the ball on Sunday. Not so much the case here tonight.
Yeah, but a reason why you see Trey Murphy's ups right there, but a reason he was able to get so many of these open looks is because of the attention that Zion Williamson brings whenever he is in the paint. He is a gravity sucker. We talk about that a lot with Zion, but his ability, a great steal right there from Zion as well, but his ability to suck the defenders in on him leaves the spacing open for guys like Trey Murphy. Down the stretch, when the Pelicans started generating more offense, it was a textbook James Borrego, the Pelicans associate head coach, offense, because they spaced you out, but Zion was still in the paint, putting pressure on the rim, but it allowed for open shots from Trey Murphy. You take a look at those points tonight, 24 and 18. When these guys are healthy, they play off of each other really well. The chemistry that they have been able to build during their time together in New Orleans, it keeps getting better and better each season, but you can tell that they were comfortable tonight playing alongside each other.
Yeah, and they're both only 24 years of old, so they're really kind of moving into their prime as well in New Orleans. 109-103, the final tonight as the Spurs fall in Game 2 in New Orleans. Sandro Mamukelashvili cleared for liftoff. More Spurs Live on the other side.
I do think that this team has done a heck of a job with dealing with a lot of unforeseen circumstances this year. I think a level of mental fatigue would be a fair assessment. I do not think that is a reason why some of those things are happening, which you alluded to in terms of the turnovers and the gameplay. But our margin for error is just 0 right now. So whether that's making free throws, converting plays when you turn them over and you have an advantage, executing a play, executing a defensive coverage, we just have no margin for error right now. And in this league, sometimes that can be the difference. A 48-minute game is long for us right now. We have to continue to challenge ourselves to lessen some of those mistakes.
Was Steph's situation, was that a matter of him being in foul trouble earlier, or because he only played, I think, that first 3 quarters, 8 minutes?
Yeah, that first 8 or 9 minutes, I believe, of the game, we didn't make a sub. That group really got it rolling, and we just kind of were going to let them ride the hot hand. So the first half rotations probably were a little unique, just from even what we were expecting to do, because we didn't want to stop our own momentum in that sense. And then, yeah, there was just a few mistakes that were made that, in a game that was close and going back and forth, we needed as much solid basketball as we could get. It was just a decision that I made on a few different situations.
You see here makes you press a little bit more than you normally would?
I'm sure. Anytime you lose one of your top guys, I think the guys that already are doing the heavy lifting are trying to do more. And the people around him need to do more, and he can do a ton like he's already doing and let others help him in that regard, right? And but I think everybody's probably pressing a little bit and trying to, and this season can be unforgiving, and we have to maintain our level of confidence individually and as a group while also sustaining a level of consistency of execution.
These last two games, though, you guys have kind of gotten out the gates to pretty good leads, and you would think something like that would kind of extend your margin for error a little bit. You know what I mean? But when you get up on these teams, is there a certain, I guess, theme or something that where you can't sustain a lead?
Yeah, there's been a couple times where it's tough when you put in 20 minutes of really hard work and get a lead, and then in 2 minutes, it's like poof. And that's where the snowball effect of multiple mistakes in a row, whether that's, and sometimes the mistake can be taking a quick shot. Not necessarily a bad shot, but the game calls for a different possession there. And that's some of those where there are certain things that you can do to try to minimize runs. Teams are going to make shots, teams are going to make plays, but there are certain things that we can do and individuals can do to minimize some of those runs. And that's where at times we're almost fanning the fire when we're in the disadvantage on some of those runs. And that's something that we're emphasizing and need to continue to be better on.
Mitch Johnson after this game here tonight. I think, Madison, you could just go from his first comment, mental fatigue.
Yep.
When you are on a long rodeo road trip, take aside the adversity the club has faced, obviously, in the absence of Victor Wembanyama and other people. Mm-hmm. But you're on a long road trip, mental fatigue is going to sink in when you're at the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're not making excuses for anyone. But you heard Mitch Johnson also say that their margin of error right now feels like it's at zero. It's very, very small. And a lot of that is because of your point, the mental fatigue. We talked about this in pregame. They've been on a weeks-long road trip with the rodeo road trip. And I know that some of these guys are used to it, that it happens every year. But still, it's tough when you're in a different city every night and you're away from your bed. You're away from some of your normal routine, your family. So, but, no excuses, because now they have to regroup, and they have night 2 of a back-to-back tomorrow.
The good news is that the Rockets will be night 2 of a back-to-back for them. They were at home at Toyota Center tonight, got a big win. They beat Milwaukee 197. And this will be the first matchup between the Spurs and the Rockets since November. They played 3 games in the first 3 weeks of the season, haven't seen each other since. We'll have that one for you over on CWSA, beginning with Spurs Live at 8 o'clock, late tip time, 8:30 from Toyota Center. That was a big win for the Rockets. They'd kind of been struggling. We're 3-7 in their last 10 going into tonight. It dropped all the way down to 5th in the Western Conference.
Yeah, well, the reality is the Rockets offense runs through Şengün and Jalen Green. The Spurs are going to have to do a good job just containing them. You heard Mitch Johnson talk about the runs and what you can do within a defense to contain some of these runs. The Pelicans, they saw them go on tonight. They cannot allow Houston to go on a lot of runs tomorrow because of the fatigue, the mental fatigue, the physical fatigue of being on the road, night 2 of a back-to-back. Control some of those runs, get out to a fast start, and the Spurs should be in good hands.
That'll do it for us here tonight. Spurs dropped this one despite 7 in double figures and a double-double from both Chris Paul and Bismack Biyombo. 42 combined between Zion Williamson, Trey Murphy III, and the Pelicans win it 109-103. Now for Madison Hawk, Jacob Toby, Sean Elliott, our entire crew, I'm Dan Weiss saying so long. We'll talk to you tomorrow night from Houston over on CWSA beginning at 8. Have a great night, everybody.